Chapter 9. Chosen. The sounds of the morning birds felt different for Kai as he slowly awoke to the sun's slow rise. Having previously been up for 48 hours, he now felt rested, which gave him a small sense of relief. This relief, however, was short-lived. Though the sense of tranquility and peace most would feel from the sound of chirping was no longer a feeling Kai now resonated with, they did, as sounds, seem to be beckoning him to one single task: survival. How could my sack of bread have just disappeared? Kai thought to himself. I could have sworn I left it sitting inside my fort. The winter season was upon Kai, and so he knew that while finding nuts, roots, or fruit may not be impossible, it would still prove to be very difficult, if not altogether unlikely. And the longer he spent time scavenging for these resources, at the risk of never obtaining them, the longer it would be until he could take down an elk. He decided to focus his energy on hunting. The pangs in his hollow stomach began to feel like waves of inhumane rage his mother brought down on him when he stepped out of line. He felt a sense of only wanting to get away or out of the state he was in, but was too scatterbrained and distracted to harness his attention into any worthwhile action, and too tired for the motivation required to do so. Walking, he became distracted in thought. His mind began recalling his childhood in the Langer village. He was a Carl, and Carls mostly kept with Carls, although his brother Arvid's best friend, Einer, was a Jarl who seemed to transcend this custom. While most Jarls pretended not to notice, there was often a snickering that took place behind Einer's back with the unspoken belief that he was subpar to the rest of nobility, especially given his parents' background. Einer's parents, who had themselves grown up as Carls and risen through the class ranks by raiding and trading, became Jarl nobles and were loved deeply by many people across ranks and titles. They took no heed to the mockery, subtle put-downs, and even intentional avoidance by some of the other Jarls, and sometimes seemed not to take any notice at all. Of course, they were a lot quieter in public after Einer didn't return from his path, a few months following Arvid's failure to do the same. There was a question around what it was exactly that sparked this initial dislike for Einer amongst many Jarls. Arvid once speculated that it was less about his parents rising in Viking society and more about an incident that occurred with Einer's sister. A Jarl by the name of Eric raped her, and without second thought, Einer challenged him to a lethal holmgang. Quickly and viciously, Einer stabbed Eric multiple times in the stomach and, without giving a second thought, slit his throat slowly in front of the Langer village, even after his enemy begged for mercy with the surrounding men, women, and children spectating. The feud, however, didn't seem to end here. Thinking back, Kai remembered the moment when two Jarls, Stiggy and Orm, had, without the official notice of a fair duel, jumped Einer on his way back from the training grounds only weeks after his lethal holmgang with Eric. Upon returning home with two swollen eyes, a fat lip, and multiple bumps on his forehead, Einer made an excuse to his parents that he had simply roughhoused with another boy his age, but relayed who had double-teamed him to Arvid. That same week at a village hall, Stiggy and Orm found themselves becoming the center of attention as they walked around with blood-stained teeth. After looking in their scouse bowls they were eating a second time, they found everything ranging from human-like finger bones and raw flesh to blood and animal teeth. Everyone roared in laughter, although the culprit for the prank never came forward. The path is what distinguishes the boys from the men, the warrior from the Viking, Kai began telling himself. Every man must take his path, and by Odin's will, stand or fall by it. But as he continued walking, a question crossed his mind, one that in the innermost depths of his mind, body, and soul began creeping up more and more inside, with a level of knowing, yet still remained unknown. If Odin had chosen Einer by sustaining his life long enough to avenge his sister and uphold her honor, why didn't he continue choosing him by sustaining his life long enough for him to return from his path? Something inside Kai was brewing, a kind of rage coupled with a kind of hopeless disbelief in the entire paradigm of his worldview. This rage and hopeless disbelief was bred from a kind of understanding of things unsaid, things unspoken, and yet things not all too unknown. But with the need to survive, he didn't have time to ponder what he had yet to bring wholly to the surface of his mind. He simply needed to put one foot in front of the other, in the hopeful anticipation and the continual walking out of his own sheer evidence that he was, through fate, chosen.